Taoiseach, I've consistently raised with you the disconnect between rhetoric and reality, between aspiration and delivery on the ground. And nowhere is this more to be seen than in the damning report issued yesterday by Professor Geoffrey Shannon, Special Rapporteur to the Government in relation to child protection. It's a report that calls into question the commitment of government to fulfil its constitutional obligations in relation to the protection of children. You recall, Taoiseach, in 2012, the government brought forward a motion for a referendum in relation to protection of children's rights, the natural and prescriptible rights of all children, and shall, as far as practicable by its laws, protect and vindicate those rights. Yet yesterday's report shows that the state has not vindicated the rights of the most vulnerable children in our society. Professor Shannon calls it a wake-up call. It's a damning indictment of how we go about trying to protect very vulnerable children. He analysed over 5,400 cases over 8 years. He said they reveal many unpalatable truths about our society. And I quote, he said, "Children are treated like human trash in some of these cases," unquote. He found failure in the pulse system, a lack of child protection training for Gardaí, very poor and limited interagency cooperation and coordination, repeat removals of children. In other words, children in very vulnerable situations under Section 12 are removed by Gardaí only to end up back in the exact same vulnerable setting shortly afterwards. The complete absence of an out-of-hours social service is highlighted, social work service is highlighted in this report. And there's a troubling gap, he says, in terms of how children with behavioural difficulties are treated by the system as well. So, Taoiseach, I want to put it to you that this in many ways represents a damning indictment of the government's performance since the enactment of the change to the Constitution in 2012, which was all about protecting the children of the nation, particularly the most weak and the most vulnerable. Can you indicate to me, Taoiseach, why there isn't a comprehensive out-of-hours social work service and what the government intends to do about it? And can you indicate, Taoiseach, why there is so little emphasis in the Templemore training colleges on child protection training as a core part of the training programme, which comes out of this audit very strongly, and why that is so, and the absolute need to fundamentally change our culture in terms of how we protect vulnerable children in our community?
Thank you, Deputy. Taoiseach.
I'm upset about this. Obviously, TUSLA being set up as a child and family agency was part of the overall strategy of putting children and families central to Ireland here, in having a senior minister appointed to Cabinet, in having a Department of Children put together, in having a referendum on children's rights and the legislation that has followed in various respects that impacts on society and social Ireland. And one of those was the setting up of the Child and Family Agency, TUSLA, which is funded by the taxpayer to a very substantial amount. Last night's programme was harrowing viewing, to say the least, and it shows the unconscionable circumstances in which some children in this country find themselves. That's not acceptable. And in doing so, in the place that they are supposed to feel most loved and most safe and most valued, in their home. I think I can speak for everyone here, Micheál, and every parent who watched, that this was a distressing viewing for parents. I would say to the social workers who feel that they're battling a system, and the trainees who feel the same, that they shouldn't be afraid to speak up and to speak out. Many feel gagged and unable to speak the truth of what they know may be happening in some places. There are a number of criticisms in this report, in the audit which is commissioned by the Gardaí and in the media coverage of it. They relate in particular, as you mentioned, to the out-of-hours social work service and the effective communication between TUSLA and Garda Síochána. It has to be remembered that the period under review in the audit is the period 2008 to the end of 2015, and that there have been continuous improvements in the child area and in TUSLA operations since then. I note that Dr Shannon, whom I respect greatly, at its launch on Monday the 29th of May, expressed his full confidence in TUSLA's child protection framework. But in relation to the out-of-hours social work service, a significant enhancement of this service took place in November 2015, and a national service now exists which facilitates 24-hour Garda contact with a social worker in cases where removal of a child under Section 12 is being contemplated, and provides emergency foster and residential care for a child who are removed from their families under this provision. And as part of this service, social workers are available on the ground at night, over weekends and on bank holidays to assist the Garda Síochána in what are the busiest areas in Dublin, Cork City, Kildare and Wicklow. And in the remaining counties, the volume of calls indicates that contact with TUSLA social workers by phone has been sufficient to date, but this is clearly under review. Some concerns have been expressed to Ceann about the placement of such children in Garda stations and in hospitals. I have been reassured that social admissions to hospital takes place only in exceptional circumstances and only where a placement is for the child's own safety.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
TUSLA do not request the Garda to keep a child over part of a night. This is a Garda decision. And in relation to the communication between TUSLA and Garda Síochána, I am informed that regular strategic liaison meetings take place at senior level to deal with this inadequacy pointed out.
Thank you, Deputy Martin.
Taoiseach, just that last line there, TUSLA don't instruct on Garda to keep anybody in a Garda station. That's a matter for the Garda. That sums it up. It just sums up the pathetic nature of buck passing and trying to mask the reality of the report, which says that the initial place, de facto place of safety for children is the Garda station. There's no point in dressing it up or trying to sugarcoat it by saying that's the Garda decision. If the Garda of a child who has been taken out, remember Section 12 is a very rare power, where the Garda doesn't have to go to courts or anything, but the Garda is convinced that the child is in danger. It could be in a home setting or in whatever setting. The Garda has to take the child out of that danger and has nowhere to put the child. And there is no comprehensive out-of-hours social work service. And Taoiseach, it's not about people out there being gagged and so on. This is a comprehensive report. In fairness, I commend the Gardaí for commissioning the audit, but the audit involved very extensive consultation with Gardaí in terms of the exercise of the Section 12 power, and frustration and annoyance and a lack of basic resources in terms of the number of social workers we have in the field in this area, and the de facto position that there is no proper, comprehensive out-of-hours social work service. That is the reality. And we need to go behind the language and the rhetoric, the defensive sort of position, acknowledge the essential truths of this report and resolve to deal with them. And the next budget should be the first place and first signal on the resource side of such a commitment.
Taoiseach.
I just want to say that as far as I'm concerned and the government are concerned, the issue here should not be about the protection of the structure of TUSLA. The issue should be about the protection of children. And accountability and transparency are what the taxpayer puts this money into TUSLA for in the first place. And that should be primarily evident to everybody. Now, if that's not the case, then we've got to deal with that issue. My understanding, and the Minister has asked for a full report of this obviously, is that work is already well underway in relation to the many issues that were commented upon by Dr Shannon in his final report. And TUSLA will continue to roll out its National Childcare Information System, which will significantly improve the information available in regard to vulnerable children. Now, I understand that in relation to the Garda National Child Protection Unit is now carrying out an audit at local level of the child protection operations between TUSLA and the Garda Síochána to see what's happening or what's not happening, maybe more importantly. That divisional protective service units are being established in all 28 Garda divisions, and effective liaison with TUSLA will be a central feature of those units, and why not? In other places you have people who sit around the table from all the different sectors and discuss these issues on a regular basis.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
And as a joint protocol is being finalised in Cancorla between TUSLA and the Gardaí on the operation of Section 12, which is an important section of that Act. This will provide clear and extensive guidance on a range of issues in regard to children who are at risk, and this will address many of the issues that are raised in the report by Dr Shannon. And finally, best practice in child protection is evolving all of the time, and research and reports like Dr Shannon's audit commissioned by the Gardaí provide a very necessary and a very valuable opportunity to review and to reflect and strive towards an improving service. But I just want to say we're not finished with this at all. The issue here has to be about the protection of children, not about the protection of a structure, and I share your view.